Okay, so here we are. I've got my slip container with my slip here. The really important thing here with this first coil is to make sure that you slip and score it onto the base, because the last thing we want to do is build this great, awesome coil pot and then have the base kind of fall off. And this is a slab and the coil is a coil. So it's kind of these two different things, and we want to make sure that they get really well connected, all right? So I've done this thing where I put my brush through the lid of the slip bucket so I don't have to wash my brush out all the time. It just stays wet in the slip bucket. Makes it a little harder to handle, but it's okay. So I slip and then I score both of these things, and I want to get pretty deep in there with that fork. Once I do this, I then have to compress this first coil into these score marks. I'm going to score it as well in the same direction that I've scored the base. I need to compress this into those score marks so A, it pushes the air out, and B, it makes this really good solid connection. That should be enough to get me around. So I'm going to position that, and I'm going to come in from the edge a little bit, right? See, I've come in a little bit from the edge, and that will allow me to bring the base up around the coil. So I'm pushing it down. All right, and I'm just going to pinch that there and kind of overlap a little bit. So you can see what I've done here. All right, it's in from the edge a little bit. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the end of my fork, and I'm going to pull the base up over that coil. If you do this properly, believe it or not, by the time you're done coil building, some of the clay from the bottom of this base will be all the way up at the top of your finished piece, which is pretty amazing. Basically, you're going to learn how to kind of add these coils to each other without slipping and scoring from here on out. And you're just kind of are feeding material into your form. It's almost like the wedging exercise, but it's just happening between your thumb and your finger. All right. Okay, so there's the setup. All right, there's my start. The other thing I need to do actually is I need to smooth this coil down into the base, right? I want this coil like totally perfectly connected to this base. Don't want to mess around, all right? And then we have a nice little start coil to kind of build off of into our coil pot. All right, so that's what you need to kind of be looking like before you start adding coils and going up into the form.